Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is the What's New webinar for VisualCADCAM 2014. For those of you that may not know, we released VisualCADCAM just 2 days ago on Monday. So everything is new and fresh, and we are very excited to show it to you today. So we're going to be going through the different modules. So, but first I'd like to answer the question, what is VisualCADCAM? For those of you that don't know, VisualCADCAM is our standalone software, and it integrates 4 CAM modules into MecSoft's free CAD software, VisualCAD. So a little bit of background. Previously, in the 2012 version, we had VisualCAD and Visual Mill integrated directly inside, as well as Visual Nest. But VisualArt and Visual Turn were their own standalone products. And so what we've done in this 2014 version is we've updated all the products across the board, and they're all integrated into VisualCAD. So all the products are under one roof, known as VisualCADCAM 2014. So we're very excited to show you all of the new features and enhancements today, and you'll get an in-depth look. So just talking about today's webinar, it's going to be an overview of the new features and enhancements. So we won't have time to give you full product demonstrations on every single module. We would be here all day. There's just too much to show. So what we're going to use this webinar for is to just give you an overview of everything that's new, the new features and enhancements, the stuff that you care about. So, but I do want to mention we do offer full product demonstrations that are available by appointment. So you can do so by calling us if you'd like to see it more in depth and are wondering if it's right for you to purchase. We do have that available upon appointment. And as always, you can download a free demo of the software, and you can do so at either MecSoft.com or VisualCADCAM.com. And then lastly, regarding today's webinar, we will have the recording available, as always, on our blog. And I put on there by tomorrow. However, typically we usually release the recording the day of. So hopefully by the end of today, it'll be live on the blog. So you can keep an eye out for that, or just check tomorrow, and it'll definitely be there by then. And so just the lineup for today, as I mentioned, we're going to go through each of the different modules of VisualCADCAM and show you what's new. So Uday will be starting us off, showing us VisualCAD, Visual Mill, as well as Visual Turn. And for those of you that may not know, Uday is our technical support manager, so you'll be in good hands hearing from him. And then next, Scott Dixon is our international sales manager. He will be showing us Visual Nest. And then the last presenter will be Enrique. He is one of our technical support technicians here at MecSoft, and he will be showing us VisualArt, everything that's new in VisualArt and all the cool features. And then we'll finish everything off with the question and answer period. I do want to mention that if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please ask them in the questions panel, which is on the right-hand side of your GoToWebinar panel. You can ask them in there, and we'll do our best to answer those throughout the webinar, as well as the question and answer period at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Uday, our technical support manager. He's going to take over and start talking about VisualCAD, Visual Mill, and Visual Turn.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Tim, for the nice introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to folks wherever you joined us from, and thanks for making the time to join us for the webinar today. We're all very excited here today to take a look at what's new in VisualCADCAM 2014. And without any further delays, I'm going to start presenting you the VisualCADCAM 2014 application here. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the application. Now let's talk about what's VisualCADCAM 2014. So VisualCAD is our homegrown CAD system developed completely by MecSoft Corporation, and VisualCAM uses a plug-in architecture which hosts 4 different modules. We have our flagship Visual Mill module. We have our turning module, which is fully integrated into the VisualCADCAM interface. We have the nesting and also the art modules that are fully integrated. Now we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the new features that are now available to you in VisualCAD 2014. Now to learn more about all of these new features, you can go to our website, MecSoft.com, and click on What's New, and it'll basically take you directly to what's new features in VisualCAD. And there's a very nice document that shows you all the new features that have been introduced in VisualCAD 2014. And as we go through the webinar today, we will take a look at some of these new features in here. So you can look at all the major enhancements and new features in VisualCAD 2014. So one of the nice features that's been introduced in 2014 is the ability to use your 3D mouse for navigations. We've had a lot of users ask for this feature, and it's now available in the 2014 release. So you can use your 3D devices from 3D Connection to zoom, pan, rotate views in the viewport in VisualCADCAM 2014. We will also take a look at some of the other enhancements like view rotation. So when you switch from the top view to the front view or to the isometric view, or you perform any view rotations, you will notice that there's an animation built into the view rotations automatically. This is also one of the very nice enhancements into the 2014 release. Now, taking a look at some of the navigation and transformation tools, we've introduced graphical scale in 2014, so where you can actually select the geometries to scale, specify the scale origin, and then you can graphically scale the geometries in VisualCADCAM 2014. Now, we also introduced tools like Graphical Manipulator, where you can activate the manipulator, select the objects, and you can transform these by dragging them. You can rotate them. You can also enter in a distance to translate it in X, Y, or Z coordinates, or even rotate it by a specified angle here. So the graphical transformation tool using the manipulator is also a new feature in VisualCADCAM 2014. Now let's take a look at a couple of other features. Now I would like to introduce a feature where we can show you rectangular scaling of objects in VisualCAD 2014. So if you have a certain set of objects that you'd like to scale, you can use the transform rectangular scale, select the objects to scale, and then you can pick any one of the corners of the bounding rectangle to fit it. This is typically helpful when you want to scale the objects to fit into a certain rectangular size or shape. You can use the rectangular scale, and all of these features can be accessed from the transform menu. You have the graphical scale and the rectangular scale, and also the manipulator, which you just saw, to translate or rotate geometries in VisualCAD. You've also introduced some of the new curve creation tools. You can model NURBS curves in VisualCAD 2014. This is one of the big improvements over the previous release. I would like to show you an example where we can create NURBS curves, and we can also modify by selecting those control points. Here I already have a NURBS curve drawn in VisualCAD, and I'm going to go ahead and go to the object properties, and we now have a new feature in the object properties called edit mode. So when you activate the edit mode and you select the curve, it automatically displays all the properties of the objects. You can now change the degree of the NURBS curve. You can modify, and you can cycle through these control points, and you can also graphically change these control points. You can actually move these objects by manipulating the control points in here. You can move them around, and you can update the geometry. Now once you model these NURBS curves, you can use them for creating surface and meshes. In this example, I'm going to show you how we can take this NURBS curve and convert it into a surface. I'm going to use the surface of revolution command. I'm going to select the NURBS curve and specify my axis of revolution. Specify the start and end axis, and specify the angle for revolving the curve. And there's your surface revolved from your NURBS curve. So you can use the curve creation tools to construct geometries, and you can use the surface and mesh tools to convert them into solids and surface geometries. We've also made enhancements to our Boolean tools for Boolean operations like unite, subtract, and intersections. In addition to these, we've also added some new tools which is very helpful for your milling purposes. You can do project to C-plane. We've added wrapping curves to surfaces. We've also enhanced the modification tools where you can extend curves by a distance. You can do extend. So there's a lot of new tools available in VisualCAD 2014. And to learn more about these tools, you can feel free to download a demo. Also take a look at the What's New document in VisualCAD 2014. The next thing I'm going to demonstrate is the power of the trim functions in VisualCAD 2014. We have now introduced a feature called a continuous command recall. So I'm going to use this feature in here, and I'm going to toggle the continuous command recall on. So when I'm performing a command and I would like to repeat the command automatically several times, I don't want to go back and reselect the same command over and over again. So selecting the continuous command recall automatically recalls the last command. So I have the trim command selected, and now with the continuous command recall, I'm just going to trim these curves, and as you notice here, the command is automatically being recalled since the continuous command recall command is active. So I'm going to trim away these curves. I'm going to repeat the same process in here, trying to trim away these curves right there. As you're seeing, I don't have to go back and reselect the trim command every time I'm trying to trim a curve. So once you have it trimmed, you can exit the trim command by hitting the right click, or you can even exit it by just toggling off the continuous command recall. So now the curves are trimmed. I'm going to merge these. So just basically make a selection to select all the objects and use the merge command and press enter to merge these curves. Now I would like to go ahead and extrude this to form a 3D model. So I'm going to go to the Surface and Meshes tab, select the curves, and use the extrude command and specify a distance for extrusion. And there's your 3D model. So there's been a lot of enhancements in 2014 in terms of CAD modeling, transformation, navigation tools, and performance improvements when you're working with large files. Now also I would like to show an example of creating silhouette curves from a 3D model. So I'm going to go to the Curves tab and use the command called silhouette and pick the surfaces. VisualCAD will automatically create a surface, create a curve, and place this curve on your active construction plane. Now let's take a look at some of the performance improvement when working with large files, especially when you're working with large STL files or large files which have a number of surfaces. There's been tremendous improvement in performance for display and navigation and viewing and display of these large files. Also, one of the nice features that have been introduced in VisualCAD is the auto recovery and auto save process. You can find these under your system preferences. You can automatically set the auto save options to save the part frequently, and you can specify in the time interval you want to save it. And also you can look under the options where you can specify your display preferences. This is where you can specify and set the animation speeds you can control, and also the rendering options. We've now introduced vertex arrays which can take advantage of your video memory of your graphics processor, graphics card in 2014 as well. So there's a lot more features to learn about in VisualCAD. There's a lot of new features. You can read more about it by going to our website and take a look at all of these new features, and you can play with them. If you do have any questions, feel free to contact us, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Now, without any further delays, I would like to go ahead and show you some of the new features we've introduced in VisualCAM 2014, And we're going to start with our flagship mill module first and take a look at some of the new features here. So I'm going to click on the VisualCAM, the menu bar in VisualCAD, and select mill, and this automatically loads the mill interface. And a lot of you folks are familiar with mill 2012. So the interface for mill is very similar to what you saw in 2012, but there's been several improvements, nice features added to it, performance improvements, newer toolpath methods, and we'll try to take a look at some of these during the webinar today. Now, one of the new features is you can activate your machining objects browser by just toggling this button over in the machining browser. Rather than having to go up to the menu bar and select the machining objects browser to access your tool manager, you can just launch it directly from the machining browser by just toggling the button for activating the Tools tab. Now let's take a look at some of the new toolpath methods in 2014. So I'm going to start with the high-speed pocketing toolpath. Now this is available in all configurations of Visual Mill, Standard, Expert, Pro, and Premium. This is a very powerful method for pocketing, and the toolpath generated in this method is generated using tangential arcs, which results in the toolpath results in constant tool engagement, so which allows you to run at much higher feed rates than any other toolpath methods, so which basically reduces your machining time and also prolongs your tool life, so which basically results in saving in terms of cost. So you can go ahead and specify all your parameters for the high-speed pocketing toolpath. You have access to your cut direction, the step overs, your cut levels. All of these parameters can be set, and you can access this right from the 2-axis methods. So you have 2-axis, your high-speed pocketing, and look at the toolpaths where you can see all. It has tangential arcs. It does a nice spiral path, and then results in a tangential arcs and gives you a nice results in a nice finish on the part. And also you can increase your cut it at higher feed rates, which saves you machining time and also prolongs the tool life. Now let's go take a look at the simulation. So I'm going to grab the machining operation and click on the play button, which results in the material removal simulation. You can also toggle the texture visibility while it's simulating it. There's your high-speed pocketing toolpath in Visual Mill 2014. Now there are several other performance improvements for 3-axis toolpath methods. Overall, there's been improvements for 3-axis roughing, finishing methods, and all of this information can be found in the What's New document in VisualCAM 2014. So these are the general enhancements. We'll talk about that. So this is the 2-axis high-speed pocketing. We also have a new method for in 2-axis pocketing. We have a new cut pattern called pocket spiral machining, which is also available in all configurations in VisualCAM 2014. One of the new features we've introduced in VisualCAM 2014 in the pocketing operation is the option to always keep the tool down. So this minimizes the engage and transfer motions lifting of the tool, so the cutter stays at the same cut level as it clears material at that specific cut level. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example for that. So I'm going to go ahead and load a part which shows the example for a constant tool down. Now in this particular part, the toolpath what we have initially programmed shows without the keeping tool down option selected. As you can see here, there's multiple locations where the cutter engages into the material. Now we'll go ahead and edit the machining operation. From the Cut Parameters tab, I'm going to choose the option that says Always Keep Tool Down and generate the toolpath. You will now notice that there's only one engage and entry location for this entire pocket, and it keeps the tool down in the material as it clears material in this pocket. So this is also one of the new features introduced in VisualCAM 2014. Also, you can notice that we've introduced clean corners, which results in tangential arcs. So it automatically figures out those uncut areas and creates tangential arcs when you select the clean corners option in 2-axis pocketing. This is also a new feature that's introduced in 2014. There have been several other features that are available to you in 2014, and you can explore all the list of new features by looking at the What's New document. I would also like to showcase one of the new features in 2014 is the power of using multi-threading, which basically takes advantage of your processor to process the toolpath generation in multiple threads, or it can automatically assign these toolpaths into multiple threads. Now, to activate your multi-threading manager, you would go up to the CAM preferences and go to machining preferences, and you would select the option that says always generate toolpaths in multiple threads. Now, when you select this option and you generate or regenerate toolpaths, you will notice that your toolpaths are being generated in multiple threads, and this basically processes these toolpaths, automatically assigns them to the cores in your processors, and improves your toolpath computation time. Now, just to show you a comparison of the toolpath computation without the multi-threading manager, now these are single-threaded if you do not have the multi-threading manager active. So you'll notice that there's almost at least a 4 to 5 time improvement in the processing time with the multi-threading manager in VisualCADCAM 2014. And you can read more about it by visiting our website and taking a look at the What's New document here. You will notice that there are significant performance improvements. It takes advantage of all your cores when you're using the multi-threading manager. Now, some of the other enhancements I would like to also talk about is in the 3-axis methods. We've introduced the option to do always keep tool down in the horizontal roughing. The horizontal roughing toolpath method also offers you the pocket spiral machining, similar to what you see in 2-axis pocketing. There have been performance improvements in 3-axis toolpath methods for 3D offset pocketing and profiling, and also better memory management for several of the 3-axis toolpath methods, like starting with horizontal roughing, finishing, pencil tracing, and several other 3-axis methods. Now, the next thing I would like to demonstrate here in the webinar today is our turn module, which is now fully integrated into the VisualCADCAM interface. So to switch from the milling browser to the turning browser is by just going up to the VisualCAM 2014 in the menu bar, and you click on Turn. Now, this automatically resets the browser interface to your turn module. It switches from your milling browser to your turning browser. So if you have a part that requires to be programmed on your CNC mill and your CNC lathe, you can actually switch between the mill and the turn browser, and you can program both the parts in the same part file, staying in the same interface. Now, we've just loaded the turning browser in here in VisualCAM. You'll notice that the interface looks very similar to our mill. Those of you who have used the mill product, the turn module looks very similar to the mill interface. You have the same 2 tabs, the program and the simulate tabs. So for those of you who are coming from Visual Turn 1.0, this is a big step up from Turn 1.0. It has the nice interface built into VisualCADCAM 2014, and the workflow is a lot easier, a lot simpler, and it's very easy to use the turn module in 2014. Now, you have the 2 tabs, the program and the simulate. Basically, you work through these tabs, work through each of these groups as you work your way from left to right. Now, when you activate the turn browser, the first thing you'll notice that it automatically sets the coordinate system to your turn coordinate system. Your Z and the X-axis is automatically set. Now, this is a 2-axis CNC turning application, and I'm going to give you a demonstration of an example on how to program a part in the turn module in VisualCADCAM 2014. We can either work with just 2D part profiles for turning, or we could work with a 3D model. So here I have an example of a 3D model. I would like to show you how to program in our turning module. Now, the first step is to define the part. So you need to establish the part geometry for turning. So you can either select curves or sketches, and or you can use solids or surfaces. So in this particular example, I've selected the solid model as the turn part geometry, and Visual Turn automatically identifies the part. Now once you identify the part, you can go ahead and define your stock geometry. So you can create a stock of different types. You can do cylinder stock, part cylinder, you have offset, revolve, stock from selection. You would then align your stock to the part. So use the align stock feature, and you can have it aligned to have it centered left or right. The stock can be aligned to the part geometry. You would then establish your material. So the workflow is very similar to how you program in the mill module. So once you've established this, we would like to go ahead and establish the work zero, which establishes the origin. In this particular case, typically in turning, you would want to zero out to the face of the stock. So we have it zeroed to the stock and the rightmost face. So the XZ origin is set to the rightmost face of the blank. We would now like to program toolpaths. There are two types of operations that you can perform in turning: the turn roughing, finishing, groove finishing operations. And you would also have options to program hole machining, where you can do drilling, tapping, boring, and reverse boring. Now let's take a look at the tool tab in turning. In the turn module, we support different types of inserts and drilling tools. So you have the drill inserts, like the turning inserts, like the diamond inserts, triangular, circular, trigon, parallelogram. You have your grooving inserts, your threading, and parting off. So you can define insert types. Now as you define these inserts, you'll also notice that the tool previews are being updated as you change the insert definition. And you can also define the orientation. OD forward is for outer diameter forward orientation. ID is for inner diameter. So you can set the orientations for these inserts as you define these inserts. And also you can assign feet and speeds for these inserts when you define the tool. You can also use the load from file option, and based on the stock material and the tool material you're working with, the turn module also gives you a recommendation on the feeds and speeds. Now once we have defined these inserts, we would like to go ahead and program an operation in here. So selecting turning and roughing automatically filters the insert types based on the operation. You can specify your feeds and speeds. The workflow and interface is very similar to our mill module. So under the global parameters, since the insert we selected is the approach type is set to OD, you'll notice that when you select the diamond insert of OD, the approach type is automatically set to OD or front face. And then you can specify your parameters. You can do a containment. You can also select avoid sections to eliminate areas that you don't want to cut or you want to avoid in turning. You can specify your roughing parameters, and then selecting generate creates your toolpath. Now here's our turn roughing toolpath. I'm going to display the toolpath visibility in here. There's a roughing toolpath. We would like to now go ahead and run the verification for it. So we're going to go to the simulate tab. Now for turning, we've also introduced two different types of view orientations. We have the ISO view 1 and ISO view 2, which allows you to view the isometric view in different orientations suitable for turning. So I'm going to select the operation in here and hit the play button to show the material removal simulation. You can also display the texture visibility as it's simulating in here. We can also change from one view orientation to the other view orientation, which is suitable for turning. So we have the turn finishing operation in here, OD turn finishing. Now since we have features that are on the ID that we would like to simulate, we have chosen the stock view to be a 3/4 view. You can switch between the different views by going under preferences and changing the simulation display mode from a full view to a 3/4 or to a half or quarter view. So selecting to 3/4 view, you'll be able to view the simulation of ID features during turning as well. And you can also turn off the visibility of the holder during simulation as well. So in turning, you can program roughing, finishing, groove finishing, turn threading, and parting off operations. And the turn module is fully integrated into the VisualCADCAM 2014 interface. The workflow is very similar to the mill module, and the ease of use is one of the nice features that you can see in the turn module. So once you have the toolpaths program, you can look at the estimated machining time and then post-process these out to the machine. The turn module includes a wide range of post-processors that are included in here, and the post-processors can also be customized or modified using the built-in post generator in the turn module. You can access the post processor by editing the post button and click on edit, which allows you to configure or modify your turn post processors. Now, without any further delays, I would like to go ahead and invite my colleague, Scott Dixon, to give you an overview of the nesting module, which is fully integrated into VisualCADCAM 2014. Over to you, Scott.
Actually, Uday, Scott is having some technical difficulties. Hello, Scott. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. Are you ready?
Oh, it must be back on. Yeah, my screen froze. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry about that, everyone. We're having some technical difficulties on Scott's end with some connectivity issues, but it looks like we're back. So, Scott, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, first of all, excellent job, Uday. Appreciate that description of the new features in CAD, milling and turning. Uday and I are going to demonstrate the nesting module, which in 2014 is now officially called Visual Nest. And first of all, he's going to bring up a part file where I have already staged both the stock material and the parts that will be nested. And you'll see that the stock material that I've chosen is irregular shaped, and that's on purpose so that you know that we handle irregular shaped materials in one of the two modules, or one of the two flavors of the nesting module. You can do both rectangular nesting and true shape nesting. We're going to demonstrate the true shape nesting because of the various features there, but I just want to briefly describe what the rectangular nesting does. It's called rectangular nesting because it takes each one of the stock material shapes and each one of the part shapes that you want to nest, and it creates a minimum rectangle around each one, and then it nests the rectangles. So you don't get quite the efficiency as for material usage if you've got irregular parts. But if you have very rectangular types of parts, it is very fast and works very well for you, such as in the furniture panel industry, that rectangular nesting would work very well. So we want to demonstrate the true shape nesting, which actually considers the actual shape of not only the sheet material but also the parts when it fits those together, and we want to demonstrate that one. The first step then is to select the sheets of material or the stock material that you want the nesting to take place in. So the way to do it is to select curves, the Select Curves button, and then go over to your screen and pick the shape. These are 2D shapes, by the way. That represents the stock material. Right mouse button accepts that, and you can pick multiple different shapes. On this one shape that we've got, I'd like to set a count of 5, which means that I've got 5 identical sheets that the nesting can take place on. It will fill up number 1, and then if necessary move to number 2, then number 3, and so forth. And we'll see how many it uses. All right, there are some other options there that will change in a little bit. We may come back to, such as grain direction is a restriction. If you're nesting on wood and it's important that the wood grain be in a certain orientation on the part, we'll come back. In fact, I'll tell you what, since we're right there, let's set the stock material to have a grain along the y-axis, which is the vertical. And we'll come back a little bit later and match one of the parts up so it'll orients that way. All right, let's go select the parts then. And I'm going to have Uday select the periphery of each one of those parts, just the periphery at this point. And the reason I have him do that is because that puts these at the top of the list. Now, a right mouse button will accept those, and you'll see that they are listed then inside of the parts list on the dialog. Now, let's select curves again and do a window around all of the rest of them. Now, you can do a window around them all if you want to. And then a right mouse button will enter those into the list. Now, let's go to the top, and if you would highlight each one. For that one, let's say we've got 12 parts. For the second one, let's do 12 on that. On the third one, let's do 11. On the fourth part, let's just do 2 of those donut-shaped parts. And on part 5, let's do 38 on a lot of those. Go down to part 6. And I'm going to do 55 of those semicircles. And on part 7, the big one, let's just do 6. Now, let's go down and take a look at 2 of the parameters down below before we do the grain direction. You'll notice that the first parameter is orientation step angle. This is default to 90 degrees. This means that any of those parts have the freedom to be rotated by any 90-degree increment to fit better in the nested set. And we're going to leave this at 90 degrees for right now. You also have a checkbox allowing you can mirror parts. I'm not going to do that. Or you can allow parts inside of the cutouts or holes of other parts. And let's not check it for right now. We'll come back and do that in just a minute. Let's go down to the next parameter, or next set in the browser. These 2 parameters, distance part to part and the part to sheet, define the spacing. On the distance part to part, since this is a metric part, let's set that to 3 millimeters. And the distance part to sheet, which means to the outside edge, let's set that to 6. Below that, you've got a slider which indicates the accuracy. I always leave it at high, but you can put it down to low for a little bit more speed. You'll have to look at your results. Let's now execute the nest, and we'll see the results we get. Again, we've got 5 sheets. Okay, it's done, so if we hit Preview Nest, it will show us that it used 3 of the sheets. The first one shows a nice nest there, fits nicely within the shape. Let's go to sheet number 2. And that also fits very nicely. And sheet number 3, a few extra parts spilled over onto number 3. All right, let's go back up to the nesting parameters, I believe it is, Uday. And we're going to leave those the same. Let's go up to choose the parts. And on this one, let's do the checkbox down below on Allow Parts Inside Other Parts. Now go back down to choose the nesting parameters, and let's redo this nest. This will allow some of those smaller parts to fit inside the bigger cutout of that part number 7. Let's preview this. Now you'll see it placed 3 parts generally within the cutout, and in fact 1 in the smaller hole. And if we go to sheet number 3, we'll see that there's very few parts on there. Now, let's go up to Select Sheets, and we'll change another parameter. On Select Sheets, if you look at Start Corner, that's the 3rd parameter over, we've started on the lower left to progress upwards. Let's set that to upper left so that the algorithm starts in the upper left and nests downward. Now go straight down to choose nesting parameters, and let's try that again. See what kind of different results. Okay, now we only got 2 sheets, so it's actually more efficient to do it that way. This just shows that you have the ability to keep trying this and seeing which is the best. One more parameter just to take a look at. You'll notice that this very large part is oriented both horizontal and vertical. Let's show you one more capability. If you'll go back up to select parts to nest, and part 7 is this large part. Let's set its grain direction so that it is along X. Let's set it along X, which means the grain direction of the part is along the horizontal. That means when nesting it, that grain direction must match the grain direction in the sheet material. So now let's go down and redo the nesting. Execute the nest again. And you'll see that that will orient this part vertically because, again, the grain has to match the grain direction specified on the sheet, which was vertical. And we got 3 sheets, so that wasn't quite as efficient. But if that's what it has to be, that's what it has to be. All right, the last thing let's do then is let's say we're satisfied with what we have. The last thing to do then is to commit the nest. And once you do that, it actually takes each of the sheets and the geometry associated with the nest, places it on layers in your CAD system, and allows you to use those individually to do machining or cutting out, whatever you need to do in any form. And again, as I said, this is purely a geometry nesting capability. And it just prepares the geometry for you so that you can then take it to machining and do your profiling and cutting, whatever you need to do. In a nutshell, that is nesting. There are a few other parameters or options that we didn't show, but it's a very nice module. It does a very good job. You get, as you see on the screen on the left, you get a % utilization of the material for each one of the layers. It'll calculate that for you. And that's it for nesting. I guess we'll turn the time over to the next person that's going to demonstrate visual art.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott, for that great overview of Visual Nest. And I'd like to mention we're going to have Enrique come up and do visual art at this moment. But I wanted to mention to everyone, in case you're unaware, you can ask questions throughout this webinar, which is in the right-hand portion of your screen. We've been getting a lot of great questions, so feel free to keep them coming. And yeah, so Enrique is our technical support technician here at our corporate office in Irvine, California. So he is going to give us an overview of visual art and a lot of the new features and enhancements that have been added into this new version. So he's just getting set up here, and he'll be taking it away in just a second.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. So now we're going to talk about Visual Art 2014. As you can see, Visual Art is fully integrated in VisualCADCAM 2014. Go ahead and select it. One of the new things about Visual Art 2014 is the user interface. As you can see, especially if you're familiar with our product, there's been quite a bit of enhancements just with the user interface alone. One of the main benefits of visual art is to convert artwork into geometry that's suitable for machining or any other downstream applications such as 3D printing. What I'm going to do is I'd like to start off with an example to show how visual art works. Then I want to actually demonstrate some of the new features inside of Visual Art 2014. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start by creating a project for the artwork that we're going to bring in right now. We'll go ahead and select that. And my project workspace is actually going to be 3.5 by 6.6. I'll go ahead and create that. I don't need high resolution. I'll click generate. What this is doing is basically, since we're working with art, we actually just created a canvas for our artwork. The next thing I want to do is click on the Create 3D Relief, and inside of my art samples, I'm going to create an image. As you can see here, it's just a JPEG image that I actually downloaded from Google Images. I thought it was pretty cool to show you guys this, just to show you how visual art works. So some of you may recognize some of the different languages being displayed here. So I'm going to go ahead and click Open. You can see here on the left the original image that I downloaded from Google Images, and on the right is the grayscale image. What I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to invert that to black and white because I want the letters to actually pop up or pop out. So I'm going to go ahead and click Generate here real quick. And you can see here that if I move this to an angle, you can see that those letters from just that JPEG image that I took from Google Images is looking pretty cool. You can see them popped up. So I just wanted to show you that really quick, just to kind of give you a quick example of how visual art actually works. You just create a project, and then you either bring in a 3D relief, create a puffed volume operation, or a swept volume operation, which we'll talk a little bit about right now using some various examples. So the next thing I want to show you is one of the new features that we have within VisualArt 2014. It's a mesh export option, and what it is a closed mesh option. You have the option to select a closed base with mirror mesh or a closed base with a planar mesh. What I have for this example is I actually wanted to show you the mirror mesh for a specific reason. So when I imported this image, basically it was just a 3D image. But what I've done is, and you can't see it yet, I'll rotate this part to the front view, is I actually created this mirror mesh when I exported it. I'll go back to the top view, and I'll slightly, let me turn off the manipulator. I'll slightly rotate it, and you can see there that the original 3D image is in green, and the mirrored image is in gray. This is kind of cool if you're working with something like trinkets, and you want to machine or maybe 3D print this, maybe, you know, as a trinket. What I want to show you next really quick is what this geometry would look like without the mirror. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete the mirror, go back to the top view, and then just slowly rotate it so you can see the difference there. So just a nice feature that we added to VisualArt 2014. I'm going to actually open up another part file here, and I want to show you the texture mapping. That's new in 2014 as well. It's really simple to use. Actually, if you go into the project workspace, I just double-clicked on that. If you look at the dialog box for materials, you have quite a bit of selection there of different materials to choose from. For this example, I've chosen brass. Okay, and to enable it or disable it, it's quite simple. We actually have a new bottom toolbar down here, the material texture visibility and the shape library visibility, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So if I disable it, it just goes back to the original color that I've selected previously. So it's a pretty nice feature, the texture mapping. Also with this part file, I want to show you the border curves and detail curves that are separate now. Before, let me double click on this operation here. Before, what we had with our previous version of Visual Art, we had all the curves just jumbled into one. You didn't have the separate border curves, which we have here. You could see on the actual part file the selection of the borders, and the separate detail curves, which is really nice. It just makes it more efficient. You can get your parts out the door a lot faster when your programming can be done a lot faster. So that's a really nice feature. I'm going to open up another file to show you a different, newer feature as well. So what we have is we have the USMC logo there, and if I select a project, what we're looking at is we're actually looking at puff operation 2 and a sweep operation. But let's say you created both because you weren't really sure how you wanted to process the part. Well, a new feature that we've added to 2014 is to suppress an operation. So you'll see here, all I have to do is uncheck the operation I want to suppress and then highlight the main project. And now you'll see that only the non-suppressed operation is being displayed. It's a really nice feature because you can add a whole bunch of different relief operations and projects for that matter, and suppress at your leisure, just to kind of look at the different ways of working with your part. Okay. As you can see throughout as well, one of the new enhancements has also been that we've just made it more robust. We made Visual Art more robust, and actually just much faster processing times as far as being able to generate and create our operations. I'm going to select a different sample here, our Rhino sample. I'm going to show you a few things within this Rhino sample. One of the first things I want to show you is some new features. You'll see up here, align native geometry inside the project. Right now, the puff operation 2 and the sweep operation of the Rhino sample is not perfectly aligned to the center of this project. So what I'd like to do is align it to the center. So I'm going to go ahead and select align native geometry inside the project. And it doesn't, you have different options. You can align it on the XY. You see all the different options here, northwest, north, northeast. I want to show you a couple of different ones. So I'm going to just select center and click OK. And you'll see that another new feature while we're discussing this is our operations, they're now associative. What that means is any modification or edit that you make to your CAD file flags the operation dirty. So that's a really nice feature because it actually notifies you that, hey, something's been changed, something's been moved. Again, it just makes your work much more efficient, much more productive. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly generate. So you'll see now that they're centered. But to make it a little bit more obvious, what I'm going to do is go back to the Align Native and change that to northeast. You can see it there. Even as I toggle to the different XY alignments, you see it just the native CAD geometry being moved. Okay, I'll click OK. So you see again they're associative, so the operations have been flagged dirty. And I don't have to generate these operations individually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do generate project. And what that does is it generates everything within that project. And you'll see the last selection I had was the northeast selection. And let me regenerate that again. Okay. So another new feature that we have is move to origin. I'll select that. What this does is it allows you to select an object and move it to a different location within the project workspace. So I'm going to select the button for Select Objects. I'm just going to do a rectangular window selection. I'll hit Enter or right-click. So the origin I'm selecting is 0, 0. So what you're going to see is you're going to see this rhinoceros CAD file move over to the X0 and Y0 coordinate. I'll click OK. And I have to just regenerate the project really quick. And you see now that I moved it down to the XY0. Okay. One of the other new features that we've added is to convert native geometry. For that, what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to create a really quick CAD example here. Let me disable these really quick. So I'm just going to draw just a basic rectangle. Excuse me. I'll just look at that in ISO view, and then I'm going to go to Surfaces and Meshes, extrude that. I'm just going to select it first, hit Enter. I'll just do 0.1 for an extrusion. So this is now basically it's a native CAD geometry. So if we just left it the way it is, we wouldn't be able to do anything with it within the project workspace because we're dealing inside of visual art right now. So for me to convert it into the project workspace so that we can make it suitable geometry to be workable inside of visual art, I use our new feature, Convert the Native Geometry. So I'm just going to select this icon, select the button for Select Surfaces. It's already highlighted, but I could select it again, and then hit Enter, and then click Generate. And then what I'm going to do is highlight the project. Now you'll see that it actually incorporates itself within the actual project workspace. Okay. Another example that I want to show you here is the shape library. For me to do that, I'm actually going to do increase the project workspace, so you can manipulate that workspace to your needs. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change that to 5 by 3.72, make that the new size of the workspace. Change this to 150 because I don't need a high resolution. I'll click Generate. Okay. You'll see now that I have a much larger workspace. I did that for a reason, because I want to show you another new feature, the Load Shape Library. I'm going to select it. So within the Load Shape Library, you can have various shapes that you've created in the past, and again, to be more efficient and more productive, you can just pick up those SLB files or shape library files so that you don't have to create them again. They're already created, and if you're using them often in different projects, so I just select it, click Open. You'll see it now within the shape library box here, and it's really simple to get it within the project. All I have to do is just left-click and drag and drop into the project. Boolean operation type. For this example, I'm just going to select Add. I'll click OK. Okay, so now the shape is actually part of the project. You'll still see some of the other residuals of the different. You still see the rhinoceros there, but I have my new shape. And of course, if I wanted to remove the rhinoceros or suppress it, I could just suppress it or delete these operations as well. But I just wanted to quickly show you how easy it is to use the shape library. So as you can see here, we have quite a bit of new features. Again, we're because of time constraints, we're unable to show you every single feature within visual art. We have many more features. within VisualArt 2014. And again, some of the newer features of the user interface and the processing times, and of course the mesh export options allows you to select the different colors, different texturing, and so these are just some of the new features in VisualArt. And again, VisualArt is fully integrated inside of VisualCADCAM 2014. And now what I would like to do is actually hand it back over to Tim for the wrap-up.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Enrique, for that great overview of features in the new VisualArt that's now integrated into the VisualCAD platform. So now we're going to go through the question and answers period. So again, if you still have questions, feel free to keep them coming. We're definitely not going to be able to answer every question, and so I apologize in advance, but you can definitely call in or email with additional questions if you have some after the webinar. So firstly, we got a lot of similar questions regarding these modules and our other products such as RhinoCAM, Visual Mill for SolidWorks, LibreCAM, etc. Regarding whether or not these features will be available for those plugins and when they will be available. So I'm going to have Anita Anand, who is our VP of Sales and Operations, answer this question and talk about our different plugins and when those modules will be available. So Anita, if you want to answer that, that'd be great.
Sure thing. That is a great question because we will be releasing the rest of our products, RhinoCAM, Visual Mill for SolidWorks, and, well, it's going to be called Visual Mill for Geomagic Design now with the name change, all in sequence. Now, the next one to be released will be RhinoCAM. We are hoping it can be done in the next 4 weeks, so stay tuned, RhinoCAM users. It will be out. Still with patience, we will get that out as well. The other two plugins will also be released after RhinoCAM, and we are hoping to get that out sometime mid-December. So before the end of the year, we'd love to get everything out, but we have been working on it. There's a lot of testing being done. It is in the works. Now, in terms of features, yes, everything that you saw today in VisualCADCAM, the new features will be added to the other products as well. So we are working on it. We'll get to it soon.
Great, thank you, Anita. And another question that we got a few different times throughout the webinar is how exactly it works with the different modules. Are all the modules included in one purchase with VisualCADCAM, or are they sold separately? So again, Anita, if you wouldn't mind talking about that, that would be great, just kind of how the licensing and sales works for VisualCADCAM.
Yes, we will be. Okay, I'm sorry, but that was a little bit of technical difficulty. But yes, each of those modules are sold separately. So you have the option if you want to purchase VisualCADCAM together with all the modules. Yes, that can be done, but you can purchase Visual Mill separately. You can purchase the nesting module separate, the art module separate, and the turn separately. So they are priced independent of each other, but there are bundled prices available for the whole product, for the different plugins purchased together as well. Now, the one little thing I did want to mention from the previous question that Tim asked was that the art will not be available in the SolidWorks plugin. And also in the Geomagic Design product, the art plugins will not be available. Nesting as well. The nesting module for the SolidWorks plugin and the Geomagic Design plugin will not be available.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anita, for answering those questions for us, clearing up a lot of the uncertainties there. That definitely helps. So we do have a couple technical questions that I'd like to ask Uday back for to answer. Let me find it here. Okay, so I've been a user of Visual 6 for a long time and think it's excellent. I haven't seen any changes in Visual Turn. Are there any plans to develop it more in the future? I'm trying to get my employer to purchase Visual 2014, but I'm still a little hesitant to push the Turn package. So Uday, can you just mention a few of the key features again of Visual Turn and how our users can find the rest of the features that have been added to Visual Turn?
Sure. Thanks, Tim. That's a great question. We've actually made a lot of new enhancements for the Turn module. One of the new features is the integration into the new CAD interface, the VisualCAD 2014. Now, selection of geometries for Turn programming has been a lot more easier and simplified than what you used to be in the Turn 1.0 module. So you no longer have to create those part profiles. You can pick a 3D model, or you could select surfaces to define your part geometry, and also the workflow and the interface is a lot easier to work with. So you can define your tools, you can assign feeds and speeds based on the tools and inserts that you define, and your workflow is just going from defining the part and then selecting your machining operation. So you don't have to go and pre-select your machining regions or the tools before you program it. And also the simulation, the toolpath animation, it's all included in the single window integration of the VisualCADCAM 2014 interface. And you have a lot more powerful CAD tools, as well as the toolpaths have been improvised. And one of the big changes between Turn 1.0 and 2014 is it's now fully available with the 64-bit architecture, so you can take advantage of your 64-bit processing on your on your computer. So those are some of the new enhancements and features for the Turn module in VisualCADCAM 2014.
Great, thank you, Uday. So I think we have time for one more question. We've already gone over quite a bit, so we won't be able to answer all the questions. But I got a few different questions regarding the recording of the webinar, if you will be able to watch it later. And yes, you absolutely will. This is a request we get often for our webinars is being able to go back and watch them later, rewatch the webinar, or if you had to cut out early, etc. So the webinar will be available on the blog by tomorrow, which can be found at MecSoft.com/blog. And yeah, I usually will get it up the same day, so it may be available as soon as this afternoon, but definitely by tomorrow. So we're going to just go through a couple more slides. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions and answers right now. But there's just a few other things I'd like to mention really quick before we close out today's webinar. And so once again, you can download a free demo of all the modules that we talked about today at MecSoft.com or VisualCADCAM.com. VisualCADCAM.com is the new product site that we've released for VisualCADCAM 2014. So you can learn more about each of the different modules, including VisualCAD, which, by the way, is a free platform. It's completely free to use and acts as the base platform for Visual Mill, Visual Turn, Visual Art, and Visual Nest. So you can learn all about the different modules, look at feature presentations, as well as Visual Mill. We have new machining operations videos available too. And once again, the webinar recording will be available tomorrow, MecSoft.com/blog. For purchasing information, you can give us a call at 949-654-8163 or email us, sales@mecsoft.com. However, if you are tuning in from an international country, definitely contact your reseller in the area if you purchase through a reseller. We do have a pre-release sale for North America only that we've extended through this week. So you might have gotten an email for it last week or the week before, talking about the pre-release sale that we had, which offers a significant discount. We will be extending that sale for North America only, extended through this week. And all the questions that were unanswered, we will answer them via email. So you will get your question answered, and once again, we apologize that we can't answer all of them today during the webinar. So we will send those through email if you did not get your question answered. And so the last thing I want to mention is if you're not already, follow us on our social media. We typically post stuff about new releases, sneak peeks. We post all of our blog posts to there as well, so facebook.com, YouTube, and Twitter. So follow us there to stay up to date with all the MecSoft news. And once again, on behalf of myself and the whole team here at MecSoft at our corporate headquarters in Irvine, thank you so much for tuning in this morning. And we really appreciate all of you guys tuning in with us.